All right, we're ready to get started. It's right at 2 o'clock. Before we get started, Representative Hill, would you lead us in a moment of prayer? What number are you over there? What mic?
To that. Oh, don't let it bite me. Let us pray. Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for your blessings on us. Father, we just pray and seek your wisdom, your guidance in everything that we do. And we just pray that what we do is according to your will. In the name of Jesus, we humbly pray and ask. Amen.
Okay, members of the committee, we're here to hear two bills today. The first one up will be Senate Bill 249 by Senator Albers. If you'll come forward to the podium there. We're ready when you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I bring before you today Senate Bill 249, which is to promote an increase to the Police Officer Annuity and Benefit Fund. First, I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of this committee, and the members of the House that have always been supporting those in law enforcement, the men and women all over our state and each corner in every district who answer the call. Now, recent events certainly have brought to light bad actors in any profession. Sadly, we've seen that in every profession. We've seen it in the church. We've seen it in our schools. We've seen it in scouting. We've seen it in business. But the 99 plus, I would even dare say 99.9% of these heroes, aptly named the finest, are doing God's work for each and every one of us every day. Suicide is now the leading cause of death, followed by heart disease, PTSD, and other several medical conditions for our law enforcement officers. As law enforcement officers, they sometimes see the worst of humanity, things you simply cannot unsee. A lot of our full-timers do not have a regular pension, depending on where they are at a city or a county department. And they rely on a job that won't have the normal time that you would see in a traditional business job. These men and women are often called out all hours of the day and the night to be on call, to be active, and to be ready. Currently, we are losing law enforcement officers at an alarming rate, both in Georgia as well as around the nation. What used to be in my district, a line of up to 100 people who are post-certified waiting to get a job at one of my North Fulton County departments, now have dozens of openings at a time. We need to do good things in order to help them out long term. A few years ago, we passed a series of bills called Back the Badge, which were great additions, as well as we passed a 20% pay raise, most of us remember several years ago, thanks to the leadership of Governor Deal and others, and that has helped. I do not know a police officer that only has one job. In fact, I don't know many of them that don't have 3 jobs plus in order to make ends meet. So with this bill, we will be helping them out, and it is justly deserved. This bill does 4 major things. The first thing it does is, for the first time, and I want to thank the supporters from the Sheriff's Association, the Police Chiefs Association, the Fraternal Order of Police. You're going to hear from our cities and our counties and a host of other people, Bob Carter with the Pension Fund, all these folks that have come together in the spirit of teamwork and cooperation to make this happen. But we're going to add our jail officers the very first time to the POAB fund. We're going to increase the monthly contribution by the members. They're our skin in the game. In order to participate in the pension fund, they have to pay, and that will go from $20 to $25. It revises the amount of the fines and forfeitures from criminal and quasi-criminal cases that are remitted to the fund. I want to make a very important point. No tax dollars are going into this fund whatsoever. Right now, I know we are all working very, very hard on difficult budget times. This does not impact the state budget at all. And last but not least, it will increase the monthly benefit paid to those members for their time in service in being there for us in our time of need. With that, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I would certainly defer to your questions.
Okay, I believe we got one so far. Number 4. Number 4.
Mine says 14.
What number are you?
There's 14 on here, but you get whatever's up there. And
There you go.
all right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Albers. And the reason I wanted to comment and not necessarily a question is because of all the legislation that we've taken up in this session, I've probably received more calls on this one by law enforcement and citizens that have heard that we were looking at this legislation for the peace officers' annuity benefit. And it's all been, support. And so you touched on it with sort of the climate of what's going on right now. That should not prevent us from doing what needs to be done for this benefit for law enforcement officers and those that we depend on every day. You don't have to look very far today to see a man or woman in uniform that's standing there ready to take action for every one of us in here. And so in that, I just wanted to say, of all the calls that I've received in this time that we've been off, I've had a lot of support to move this legislation at the proper time. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We have a question from a virtual member of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are you ready for my question?
Yes.
Looking at the actuarial study, it appears that this will not be funded through the additional contributions and fines. Am I looking at that correctly? That there will be an actual cost?
Carter up as he would be the resident expert on that, so we don't speak out of turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your question. The actuarial study indicates that with the additional fine and forfeiture money and the additional contributions from the members, it would satisfy the required minimum contributions for the fund, and it would make a long-term commitment. It would be fine. There would be no additional cost to the state of Georgia, and there is no cost to the state of Georgia. And the cities and counties are bringing this forward because it comes out of some of the revenue that they would have gotten. But it's been supported by the Association of County Commissioners and the Georgia Municipal Association. Does that answer the question from the virtual
question.
member?
What is the 12,573 I'm looking at then?
Contribution that was going to be required for the fund to be funded.
So is that no longer the case? That it says increases first year cost to the fund by 12,573. This includes 7 million to amortize the unfunded liability. And it talks about a yearly cost of, let me go up to the little higher. I thought I saw 1 million somewhere. So I'm trying to reconcile those two. It says, according to the actuarial investigation, the fund would not generate sufficient revenues through increased member contributions and fines and bond forfeitures to cover the additional costs associated with this legislation, and therefore would not meet the concurrent funding requirements of OCGA 47-20-50. So with that, this would result in a shortfall to the fund of $1.8 million in the first year if all provisions of this legislation are enacted. So I'm trying to reconcile that with the actuarial study that I'm looking at.
The actuarial study you're looking at has been updated since then. We were asking for additional benefits that would not have been funded, but we backed off and went down to a lower actuarial study. And that actuarial study does say that it would meet the minimum funding standards.
Could we get that actuarial study before we vote on this bill?
We're going to send that to you, Representative Wilkerson.
Oh, do you have it there?
All right. Representative Wilkerson, did you have another question before I take?
Well, I guess just a
here?
comment. I guess just a comment. And I would like to see that actual study before we vote on it. But the comment is that I did receive a complaint, concern that while we may agree that we need to take care of our law enforcement, we're incentivizing fines and forfeitures, which we know we've had a lot of discussion down at the Capitol, that crime should never pay. And in this case, it may not pay for the criminal, but crime does pay for those that benefit through retirements. I believe that this should be something that's funded by the counties and that we should never monetize the criminal justice system And so I think there is that concern about using fines and forfeitures to fund something that the county should be paying for. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Albers.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And Representative Wilkerson, I do appreciate your comments. If you look at the way a lot of things are done, as an example, for the firefighter pension fund, that is funded by insurance premiums, which obviously has a connection to those that respond often to put out fires that would then enact insurance. So I do very much appreciate your concern. I do not draw those two parallels at all, though. And I would also just comment that when we first put out the pension fund bill, we were looking for a bigger ask. And that's what you're looking at, is that original actuary study. And then after time, we decided to pare that down. And that is why Bob Carter is here, who manages that fund. And I know you'll get a copy of that, but I do want you to know from me that there's obviously we dotted all the I's and crossed the T's, that it does meet the actual study.
Okay,
Well,
we've got
thank
a
you.
question for number 7. Who's number 7? Mike, number 7. All right, 9. You're 7? You're 10. I don't know where in the world. Well, I don't know where that is. Okay. Okay. We'll go to number 9. Who's number 9? All right, Representative.
I just wanted to restate what I thought Mr. Carter said, that in a way, you're just asking for more of what you're already getting so that you can give it to the jailers who do not have access to a retirement system at this time. Is that correct?
Well, no, well, yeah, it's more than that. It's not just the jailers, right? We're also increasing the benefit for all the participants, right?
But
So-
that's the new is that they will be covered and that the benefit will be greater partly because of this money that's coming in and partly because they're going to be paying more as individuals. Correct?
Exactly.
Thank
Thank you.
Number 10. Who's number 10?
Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to make a note before I go to question that none of our state troopers have been wearing face masks. And we're talking here about our concern for their well-being generally, that should include their health. That being noted, I do sort of want to reemphasize what Representative Wilkerson has mentioned. Even before this bill specifically about this pension fund, before we suspended session, we had gone through several bills, I believe 2, if not 3, that did exactly the same thing about trying to fund something through the utilization of increasing fines or penalties, or in this case, I'm still not certain, and if someone can just clarify with a yes or no, will there be an increase in the fines to cover and supplement some of this? And even if it's not, again, if you're only increasing the amount of money that's already taken from a fine,
The study. Okay,
who
thank you.
else is missing that money, or where would that money otherwise be or be taken from?
Go ahead.
In the pension plan world and all the other add-ons that we're talking about, there are some 17 different agencies, not just POAB, that shares in these fines and forfeiture money, and a little bit of everything out there that goes through the cities and the counties. So POAB was funded this way back in 1950 when the General Assembly created this, and they were the first to get a piece of the fines and forfeiture money. That everything else has come behind that, everything from the Victims of Witness program, this brain and spinal injury program, it just goes on and on that these things are done exactly what you're talking
Right.
about. So yes, this would come
so
out
be-
of the money that's already being allocated to fines and forfeitures.
So that's what I want to clarify. So who would get then a reduction? Because if there's already a preset fine amount and you're taking more, that means someone is receiving less.
But that I can't answer for you. I don't know, because some of the cities and counties, well, all the cities and counties set their own fines and forfeiture money. So they make the rules on how they pay the money out, and then it's done by a protocol after that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone else have a question? All right. We had a couple of people that were signed up to speak. that contacted my administrative assistant to speak. I don't have that. I don't have those names, but if you contacted my assistant, if you come on over to the microphone. You got a question? I'm sorry, I didn't. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the same spirit of the comments of Representative Rickier, I'm more or less want a clarification of the fines. You referenced, Mr. Carter, in your comments to Representative Lopez. Can you all hear me well? I just feel like you can't hear me well. Okay. You referenced in your comments to response back to Representative Lopez about the list, the different groups that receive monies from these fines. Can you reference that again? What are some of those different organizations or groups that may receive funding from those fines?
They're already receiving it.
Mhm.
Brady's filing is one. They just recently moved up in the protocol of how they get their money. Excuse me. They moved up in the protocol of where their money will be come out for one of the top 5. And then there is the law library in all the different counties. Then victim assistance program is part of this process. Those are some of the ones I remember off the top of my head. I believe there's a county jail fund. So those are the kind of things that through the years have been added on to what PRAB started through the General Assembly back in 1950.
So again, would this actually increase the amount of the fine, or it just increases the contributions of who are going to be actually receiving,
Right.
and the jailers are going to be a part of that?
I'll be a part of that.
Okay.
We've always wanted the jailers to be a part of this because they are the first line to deal with people when they come off the streets to the jail. They got a tough job. But because it never was an issue of who should and who shouldn't, it just was an issue of money. And this is going to give it the money to get those guys and ladies in. They've got the hard job out there. And thank you for your support.
Oh, absolutely. And I must say to my colleagues, as a recipient, well, maybe I shouldn't say that I'm a recipient. My husband was a recipient of the Spinal Trust Fund.
Okay.
And so that came in very helpful when it came down to trying to purchase a handicap accessible van. And that fund, because of those funds, going to that fund was able to help him in his endeavors of trying to secure a handicap accessible van, because those are very hard to find in the state, in rural Georgia. I'll put it like that, in rural Georgia. So thank you for that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Number 10.
Just a language clarification. Again, with where the money's coming from. Line 58, in section 3, does, in that last paragraph, does say that, I won't read the whole paragraph because my concern is on 58, line 58, which says which cases before any court or tribunal in the state shall be added to the amount of fine imposed and collected. And so that references the amount of whichever amount is greater than $10 or 10% of the imposed fine. So will there, because this allows, or this would indicate that there could be or shall be actually, that amount would be added to the fine imposed.
And it is already added in there. It's just a recodification of that to change the amount of the add-on.
All right, any other questions for the two gentlemen up here right now? All right, we had a couple of people that were going to speak to the bill. So if y'all, when I'm going to come up, that'd be fine.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for hearing this very important bill. Chairman Albers, Chairman Black, thank you for your support in the Senate. Most of y'all know me for a long time. I'm getting sign language over here. I can't. Anyway. Oh, I'm sorry. Terry Norris with the Georgia Sheriff's Association. Most of y'all know me a long time. I've been around more than almost anybody in this room, probably at this venue, and have loved some of it. This is a nice environment here. But I will say this, in the entire, my time with the sheriffs, it's been 1995 when I became the exec for the Sheriff's Association. We've been working with POAB and the legislature to do this very thing, particularly in the area of jailers. The jailers are the last people, the last group of law enforcement officers in the state to be afforded the ability to participate in this important fund. And this is a supplemental retirement fund by definition. But for these people that we're talking about, not just jailers, many deputy sheriffs and local police officers, this is their retirement fund. They have nothing else but Social Security in many places in this state. Just this last week, one of my sheriffs called about an adjoining sheriff in Southeast Georgia who called him and was so excited because he'd finally gotten his deputies a raise to $14 an hour from $11 after 10 years. So this is a very, very significant piece of legislation in spite of all other activities, COVID and otherwise, that we're all facing these days. Our people want to do good. Our people will do good. We will continue to protect and serve the communities. We have work to do, as does our communities. So in all due respect to this committee, thank you for bringing this bill forward today. Hopefully you will pass it unanimously. Thank you. Questions?
Anyone have any question for the sheriff's representative? All right. Was there anyone else in the crowd that would like? Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I too thank Senator Albers for passing this legislation. I'm Deborah Nesbitt, and I'm here representing the Association of County Commissioners. I think there's a letter in your folder, a joint letter from us and the Georgia Municipal Association. Our support in working on this bill really does go back to the year when you had the badge. They had it over in the Senate about local police compensation and benefits. And we have worked with them over the last several years to fashion this legislation. We support it, as does the Georgia Municipal Association. We feel like it's a great recruitment and retention tool for the local governments, especially when you get outside metro area. It's very difficult to fill those positions. And we do appreciate the fact that the jailers will now be included. They really are the frontline people dealing with all of the mental health issues and the other things that we're experiencing right now in the local jails. So we just feel like this is a way for us to show them support. And so we do support the bill.
Anyone have a question for the lady? All right. Representative Wilkerson.
Thank you. And thank you for getting me a copy of the actuarial study. And I can see that it does cover it. But I guess the last, I think to Representative Lopez's point, lines 55 through 59 seem to clearly state that it's an additional fine that's going to be added on top of it. So there is an increase, it looks like, to the fines, because it says it shall be added to the amount of the fine imposed and collected. That's line 58. Shall be added to the amount of the fine imposed and collected. And then it goes on to talk about it. So that's why I'm just thinking that you're getting, okay, let me back up. Line 52, instead of saying a portion of the amount collected, it's saying the greater of $10 or 10%. And then it strikes line 60 on. So that would be one piece. The second piece is it looks like it's adding an additional $10 or 10% on top of the fines that are already imposed. That's the way it reads to me, unless I'm missing something. But I'm not sure why those sentences are in there for 55 through 59 if they're not an additional fine.
Okay, we're going to let lead counsel tell us about that.
Thank you.
Yes, Representative Wilkerson is correct that this would be an add-on.
You are number 4, correct?
4.
Yeah,
Yeah, I got you in there.
All right. This would be an add-on in addition to the current amount, the fine imposed. So historically, this has been a subtract from, where if the fine was $100, they would take an amount of that $100 and remit it to the POAB, where this would be an add-on. So if the fine's $100, then you would add $4 and remit that to POAB.
Okay, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
he was breaking up a little bit. Just to clarify, so previously, I just want to make sure I recap that it was $100 and we would pull that money out of that $100. Now it would be $100 plus the 10, so it would basically be 110. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. So it is an increase,
Hold
like
on,
President Lopez was saying. Thank you.
Senator Albers is going to, go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, I know it's difficult having folks all over with different microphones and on video. I appreciate everybody's patience. But you also see, though, in striking lines 60 through 66, what we've done is we've also streamlined part of that as well. So if you look through each one of those lines, I won't read them verbatim because you have them in front of you, but it talks about what used to be there versus what it's being changed to. So I think that should hopefully clarify part of those positions. Thank you.
Representative Wilkerson, do you have any
Albers?
other questions?
No, I just want to clarify that. So striking lines 60, so in the past on line 60, it would be $3 or no more than 4 if it's less than 25. And then it goes on. That is being replaced by line 52 where it says a portion of. So now it's just a flat $10. So those two equate to each other. 52 equates to line 60 through 66. Those two equal out. So basically, instead of having a lower amount, we're just making a flat 10 or 10%. And then in addition to that, we are adding lines 55 through 59, which as Legislative Council said, is in a completely separate section, which is adding an additional fine. So it's not replacing each other. It's kind of replacing each other and adding to enhance that additional funding.
Okay, Senator Albers.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Wilkerson. I appreciate what you're saying, and I think you're certainly correct. I think we both are, depending on how you're looking at it. There is now a flat fee that replaces what the original fee was in total, but the amount that's going to be taken from an individual based on their fine will likely go up slightly, especially if they had a lower amount of fine, which is the 10% versus the $10 versus what the original dollars that were pulled off of that. So.
Okay. Oh, so lit up anymore. Okay. Any other person have another question? Okay. Do I have anyone else that wants to speak? All right, go ahead.
Chairman Benton, members of the committee, I'm Jamie Steinberg. I'm the state president of the Georgia Fraternal Order of Police. Just appreciate your time and appreciate the attention that you've given to this bill. This bill was very important before. It's even more important now. I'm not going to rehash some of the things that were spoken of today, but one thing that I think is extremely important is I want you to know that all the police organizations, the Sheriff's Association, the Chiefs of Police, we all got together and we've been working on this collectively as one group, not against each other or anything like that, because this benefits Georgia law enforcement, everybody in the state of Georgia that's in POAB. And I think even more than that, 3/4 of the members of POAB are local police officers and county sheriffs. The other quarter are state officers. So I think it's a huge benefit on the local level. I just wanted to add that to the committee for the consideration.
All right, thank you. Who's number 7?
I'm number 2.
On the
Come
sheet
back
of,
to me.
on the sheet of paper on the desk, underneath that.
Oh, it does say 7.
All right. Do you want to speak or you?
I can wait.
Okay, all right.
Wait till the end, since I know that I'm number 7.
All right. All right. Any other questions? What number are you? No. Number 2? Where's number 2? Oh, all right. Number 2?
I didn't mash my button or anything.
All right. You're on number 4.
So are you ready for my motion?
I'm ready for your motion.
Well, as I mentioned, in this climate and what's going on right now, I really think this is an opportunity to send us.
I'm sorry. I didn't see him up there to speak, but hold on just a second.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Butch Ayers, and I'm the Executive Director for the Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police. And like everyone that's been up here, we've been working really hard and working with each other on this particular bill. These are challenging times for all of us. We've had a lot of challenges facing everybody in law enforcement and in the community that we live. And we also have a recruiting and retention crisis as well throughout the state of Georgia with law enforcement. I think this bill would go a significant way towards, assisting in some of those issues as far as especially retention and recruiting. I would certainly appreciate your consideration for the bill, and I thank you for allowing me this time to speak. Thank you.
Just a minute, Representative Laricchia, number 7. Representative Bentley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For me, I just want to kind of reiterate where these dollars are going as it relates to the fines, the different organizations that will be receiving assistance from the increase of these fines, which is money that's going back into our communities to help our constituents. Is that an accurate statement?
Correct. So when fines are, which are set by the local governments, are put into motion, then they decide what to do with part of those fine monies, right? In this case, part of it is carved out, as Mr. Carter mentioned, from back in 1950, that part of that has always gone to the POAB. That will continue to be the case, plus some incremental dollars. But then other things have happened, like the spinal injury one we talked about, as one as many others. So. But this is just really specifically only to the POAB. Thank you so much.
Last question, number 10.
Oh, I just wanted to thank Chief Ayers for his service in Gwinnett County and ask him to come back. So.
Okay, Representative Laricchia, we're to you now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just think this is the right time and this is the right way to do it, to send a strong message to all of those that serve us. And it's a tough job, and I think this has been long overdue. Mr. Chairman, I move due pass.
All right, we have a second. All right, now, any comments on the motion, number 10?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to offer an amendment.
All right, we'll listen to the amendment.
Council, I don't know, the amendment would be simply to strike out the underlined language added on from line 55 to 59. That would allow for the increase in the fines imposed.
Okay, the way I'm understanding your amendment is that starting on line 55 at the period or the underlined part where it starts with an amount equal to, and deleting that all the way down to 59 to the period after treasurer.
Yes, sir.
That's your amendment.
Yes, sir.
All right. We have an amendment before the committee. I'm assuming that's in the form of a motion.
Yes, it is. All right.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, hold on a minute. Go ahead.
Second.
You're on.
Representative Lopez, thank you for offering the amendment, but I just need an understanding of how this amendment is going to, what the impact of this amendment going to have on the bill overall. By striking that, removing it, where is it going to leave the actual bill and what they're trying to accomplish?
It'll kill it. It'll kill the bill because it will no longer meet the actuarial study.
Well, it would still leave 52, which is the greater of $10 or 10%, but it wouldn't allow for an addition to the fine that's already imposed. So it wouldn't do the first part, which is we're just taking more from the fine money. It would allow for that, but not allow for an increase to the fine.
If I could answer, Mr. Chairman, to help out Representative Bentley, I appreciate your thought process there, but the actuarial study that makes this bill whole and possible is built upon the economics which are in the bill. So your amendment would in fact nullify this bill and it would not go forward.
We have an amendment. We have a motion. And do I have a second?
Second.
The amendment fails. due to lack of a second.
Wilkerson
can't hear
seconded
you.
the bill. Wilkerson seconded the bill.
Who did? Okay. Go ahead, Senator, Representative Wilkerson.
Yes, I second the bill.
You second the amendment?
I do second the amendment. As we discussed earlier, we have to acknowledge that this does increase the fines if we're saying it would kill the bill. I don't know if I agree with that. We can still work on it, but I do second the amendment.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the amendment? And the amendment is on page 2, starting on line 55, after the word, period after the word treasurer. We would delete all of that is underlined down to line 59, the period after the word treasurer. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, if we delete all of that in 55 to 59, and then all of the lines are struck from 60 to 66, does that not make the new fine be $10 or 10%? I'm confused about so that all, regardless of the levels of the fines of $25 or 100, will all be at $10 or 10%, which would really be an increase?
On this, if we do this, then we're raising the cost.
That raises it more, I'm afraid.
We're going to raise the cost if we adopt this amendment, and that in essence would kill the bill because it's already been actuated at these figures now.
Yeah, I understand that. I was just trying to look at if we take that out and we leave all that other struck, then it leaves just on line 52, the greater of $10 or 10%. But all your qualifiers of $3 on a $25 fine and all that's been struck. So everything is now $10 or 10%.
Well, your qualifiers there on 55. Oh, so you decided to join us.
That's right.
I'm just concerned.
An amount equal to the greater of 10 is a qualifier.
Make it worse. It's going to make it higher. Yes.
Let's vote on it, kill it, and we'll move on.
All right.
Let's
Okay.
vote.
Number 7. That's you, Ms. Bent.
Oh, okay. So back to Representative Lopez's amendment. If that is removed, tell me again, how's that going to impact those, the monies that go into the different funds?
No, this is only for one. All those other things get money out of the fines. We're talking about only one thing, and that is to the Police Officers Association.
Right, but the dollar amount that's in here, the money that's in here, that will help. Is my understanding that'll help give those, you're gonna add in the
No, it
jailers,
doesn't-
right?
it gives to the jailers, but it does not give to any other group. It gives to only the police officers.
Okay. Right, but so again, I'm just trying to make sure that if this is removed, will that impact the fines going to those funds? Would that be less money going to those funds? Is it gonna be still the same amount
Yeah.
going to the funds? Okay.
They're not connected.
Okay. I'm
As I know
good
this esteemed committee is well aware of, all retirement bills have to be put in the first year of the legislative biennial for the purpose of it being sent for actuarial study over the off season before we come back. If we were going to make a material change like this now, this would need to be sent back out to the actuaries to be redone again. And knowing where we are in this part of the session, it would absolutely kill the bill.
Gotcha.
So
Okay,
I would
we're getting
Okay.
ready to vote on this, but I'm gonna let Representative Wilkerson make a statement, and then we're gonna vote on amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify, so there are two separate pieces here. In the past, a portion of the fine would be collected and remitted, and that would start on line 60. It was $3, no more than 4, and et cetera, down to 66. This bill, what it does is it comes in and says, instead of a portion, you're going to take either $10 or the greater of. So right off the bat, it's the greater of $10. When in the past, it could have been as low as $3. So that's what this bill does. That's what the amendment on, and that is a brand new fine of $10 or 10%. So if we take lines 55 through 59 out, we are taking that additional revenue source out of the bill. So the question becomes, how long would it take to get back an actuarial study? Because we can change it, because this actuarial study was actually done in February after the session resumed. The same way I did with pension for legislators. I am sensitive to what's going on outside. And I know we've mentioned that this is a time to support our officers, but it's also a time to support the public. And I don't know if before we take up any legislation dealing with a reform package, that we can go back to people and say, look, we know that people are concerned about the fines and the criminal justice system being used in a certain way. And we know that when I get pulled over, am I getting pulled over because I have a tag on my plate that says, Alpha Phi Alpha, because I did something wrong, or is it because the law says I can? And as long as we have those laws in the books, and then we turn around and say, we're going to fund your retirement, not by what the county is doing, and the county should pay for this. If this is a wise investment, which I believe it is, it should be paid for by taxpayer dollars. It shouldn't be paid for by someone that's not convicted. It doesn't say if you're convicted. It says you have a fine or a forfeiture. Someone stops you, takes your stuff. You've never been convicted, but they take your items. And now they're using that money to pay for. I just think it sends the wrong message. And so that's why I support the amendment. I believe we should pay more, but I believe it should come out of county coffers, not from fines and forfeitures. Thank you.
All right, we have the amendment before the committee. We have a motion and a second. We're ready to vote. All those in favor of the amendment as stated, if you would raise your hand. Okay. All those opposed to the amendment, raise your hand. The amendment fails. Now we're ready to vote on the bill. We have your motion and we have a second over here. We're ready to vote. All those in favor of Senate Bill 249, if you would raise your hand. All those opposed, like sign. Bill passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Did they get my vote? Was my vote recorded?
Next bill is Senate Bill 294 by Senator. Oh, Senator Albers, who are you going to get to carry that bill, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had the Honorable Representative Micah Gravely carrying that bill, if that pleases you.
That'll be fine.
Great, thank you so
You
much.
do a good job.
Thank you.
All right. Senate Bill 294 by Senator Black. You'll come forward, Senator. Chairman.
Good evening. Good to be with y'all.
We're ready.
Okay. Our statute provides that our retirement systems that the state has can invest up to 5% of their funds in alternative investment. But that statute also exempts the teacher's retirement system from being able to utilize that too. This bill simply removes that restriction on the teacher's retirement system. Originally, it was written this way because teachers are ultra conservative and they're thinking on their investments, and they were afraid of alternative investments. The ERS is the other big system that we have, and it has made the investments. They have done very well over years. In fact, they have outperformed our investments in equity, and this is particularly telling At this day and time, with the stock market being as unstable as what it has been. So this bill right here will simply allow the teachers' retirement system to utilize this tool with up to 5% of their.
Committee have a question for Senator Black. Everyone understands what the bill does. Number 10.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick reminder, which of the other retirement systems also have that do alternative investments, and what's their cap?
All of them are subject to the 5% cap. I don't have any info.
The firefighters are at 10%.
That's right. I did know that, and that slipped my mind. Yes.
Okay, thank you. That just wanted to recall.
Number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Years ago for the ERS, they were concerned, but then, I mean, they wasn't just concerned, they was upset. But like you mentioned, it has outperformed anything else we do, which leads me to the question of, teacher retirement systems, kind of a, unique group. And they get terribly upset, even when you are really trying to do what may be best for that fund, to make it sustainable, to help with the revenue of it. What are they saying? And I guess we'll probably hear from some people, but what is your pushback been? What's TRS's thought?
I think the rank and file teachers are still very leery of this. I've had feedback from the leaders, but at the same time, they said, we support what you do, but we can't publicly support it because our rank and file members are uneasy about it. I think we've got an education chore. We've got to convince these teachers and these retired teachers that this is for their benefit before we move forward. I think we're going to see in the future this increased from 5% up. And I don't have any estimates where we might go with, but I think it would be wise because these alternative investments, they one of the main things that includes is real estate. And me being an old farmer, I can tell you what I believe in real estate. But it has served well the people that have invested in land over the years. And so I think we will see more of this down the road, and I won't project how far that will go, but I think this is something that you can look forward to. But we can't go no further than what our people will allow us to go and feel comfortable with it. And right now, I think this is a step forward for the teachers' retirement system. But we got to take advantage, and we got to do the job of educating for them to be comfortable with us, because, with this stock market the way it has been this year, we have taken another step backwards in our unfunded liabilities on our teachers' retirement system. And so we benefited this year in our budgeting process by a reduction in the contribution to the teachers' retirement system. Now we're going to have to take care of that. And I believe the stock market is going to rebound. Once we get this economy open back up, people back, I think you're going to see that stock market we're going to regain that money that we lost, I think. But right now, it reflects on us.
Number 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You touched on increasing the percentage. I believe the House passed a bill that increased the alternative investments to 10%. And that was based, partly on the fact that teachers' retirement was not included. If we were to pass this and that bill passes the Senate, many of us would have voted for a bill that increases teachers from 0 to 10% because something was changed afterwards. So do you know the status of that 10% bill?
Representative, I will tell you this. I made a commitment to the teacher retirement when when I introduced that bill, and that was my bill that we passed, that if they had a problem later on with the 10%, that I would drop it back to 5. And there is a substitute sitting in the Senate retirement bill that drops teacher retirement back to 5, but it's got all the other retirement systems in there too. So I'd like to keep, I hope that bill will stay intact. So that's where that bill is.
Okay, thank you for that
Mhm.
clarification. But as you said, I guess the market being what it is, it just, I get down here and it just feels a little bit different than the real world, that to go to alternative investments when the market is tanking just seems kind of different, but that's just me, a little accountant. So, but thank you for that clarification on the 10%.
Okay. Any questions for Senator Black? Do I have anyone in the audience that wants to speak to the bill? One person, okay. 2 people, okay. Come on around.
I'm
Go
going
ahead.
to try talking with my mask on, so y'all please let me know if you can't hear me. I'm Margaret Ciccarelli from PAGE, the Professional Association of Georgia Educators, representing about 97,000 educators across the state. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving us the opportunity to speak today. I had not planned on speaking on the bill, but since the issue of whether or not teachers support the legislation arose, I thought I should speak briefly to you. I think the chair was accurate when he characterized mixed feelings within the education community about the legislation. And indeed, my organization has expressed some concern about alternatives in the past. I will say that we don't currently oppose this legislation, but I have expressed concerns at previous subcommittee meetings about the interplay between Chairman Benton's bill and Chairman Black's bill, but that appears to be resolved, and that makes us more comfortable with the 5% if it stays at 5. But to go from 0 to 10 would be quite scary for us at a time when alternatives aren't currently permissible for TRS.
I'd like to make a comment on that. Just because it's at 10 doesn't mean they have to go to 10.
Exactly.
So-
We've got great leadership at TRS, and we've talked to them about this bill and have confidence that they will be conservative in their approach to utilizing this tool. And as others have mentioned, ERS has done quite well with it. So we appreciate the opportunity to weigh in to share our concerns and some of the pros and cons of this legislation.
All right. Any questions from Ms. Ciccarelli? Okay, next.
Thank you, Chair. Rod Chatham is my name, and I'm with the Georgia Retired Educators Association. And much as Margaret has said, there's that natural resistance to risk-taking in consideration of our pension. But Chairman Black, I think, has done a good job. And we right now support his 5%. However, we are very nervous about moving it any further. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Buster? Yeah. What number are you? Go ahead.
Number 11. Under Senator Black's Senate Bill 294, when it says authorized to invest in certain investments, do they meet with the teachers and the teachers decide where they want their investments going, be it mutual funds, REITs, stocks, or what have you? Or is it say this automatically, we're going to start investing X amount of the monies?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and allow me to work my way to Representative's bill there. First of all, as you know, this is a bill that would be permissive. It does not require going up to 5%. In fact, ERS has been successful in their transition into allowing the alternative investment class because they've not pushed all the way to 5%. I think Mr. Poppin can correct me. I think about 3% of the total portfolio currently exists, and they've been working on this for several years. So So it is a permissive bill. It does not require all the way ratcheting up. How that works, each of our retirement committees has an investment committee made up of a subset or subcommittee of trustees who work to oversee and to work with our investment advisors about where the investments are made. The reality of it is if our investment personnel can't make more money in the alternative investment class, they will want to be elsewhere, because obviously that's what they do, is they're employed to return a greater amount of returns on their assets for us. So it is a permissive bill up to 5%. And we don't even know that we would be able to go up to 5% in the first 5 or 6 years. It will be somewhat market driven, but also what opportunities exist for us. Secondly, as has been pointed out, each year since ERS has had the opportunity to invest in the alternatives, this asset class is outperformed both the equity class as well as the fixed income class. For us to be able to continue to pay benefits, to continue to pay cost of living adjustments, this little bit of extra will help to ensure our sustainability over time if we have this asset class as something that could be used as a tool. Thirdly, it actually allows for greater diversification. If you think about your own assets and your own investments, and you took away what you owned, let's say in the area of real estate, you would probably be missing a key component of what your overall asset classes exist of. So as the Chairman Black has indicated, and we've had this conversation before, if we were able to invest in certain alternative investment classes to include real estate, it actually increases our diversity, and in some ways may put us in a greater position of stability in times of uncertain markets. Also, as we've looked across the country, we've reviewed to my knowledge, the only system that does not have the alternative asset class as an option for them is the Teachers Retirement System of Georgia. So we think to have this as a tool may well be a good option for us. We think, as has already been said, there is, I think, much more acceptance among educators. And most of you know that I'm a retired educator myself. So how this fund does directly impacts me. But I think we've done a better job informing people about what alternative investments look like, what those options are. Currently, some people define it as being in the area of hedge funds. Well, currently our fund does not do hedge funds. It's more in the area of private equity type of investments. So I'll say all that to say that we have talked to many of our educator groups. We've talked to our retirees all across the state. And while there are certain people who maybe don't always understand this and what an alternative investment is, we think it has potential promise for us in ensuring the long-term sustainability of the funds of the Teachers Retirement System of Georgia. Thank you. And hopefully in that I got Representative Williams' question answered. Yes.
Any other questions for Mr. Evan? All right. Representative Wilkerson.
Well, actually, I was going to ask a question. Can you give me a couple of examples of alternative investments?
Is this for your business now, or this for your?
You know, the term alternative investments includes a number of things in addition to equities and are fixed. It could be a private equity or part ownership in a private company that has not gone public. In many cases, it may be a part of a company that's in the process of going public. So that private equity is money that's gone into to help to boost up and or make consolidation. That would be one form. Another form for us would be real estate. Because currently under the current law, we cannot invest in real estate. And, you know, in some ways, even where our building is located in Northwest Atlanta, we're some of the hottest real estate in the state of Georgia and in the nation. And other than the property in which the building that we own, we can't be a part of investing because the law currently does not do that. So those are two of the most common that I'm familiar with, would be private equity, would be real estate, but certainly there are a number of others.
Representative Lurkia.
Going to kind of comment on Representative Wilkerson's, what are the TRS owns part of or all of the Robert Trent Jones golf courses. I mean, that type of an investment, and it had a huge return for any of those properties they've ever sold. And I thought, well, that's crazy. You know, I thought initially when I heard that, that's crazy. But it was one of the highest returns on their investment of real estate that they had in their pension.
Number 16.
Is that me? Oh, it says 23. Okay, I'm sorry. So along the same lines, is the term alternative investments defined somewhere?
The term alternative investments is defined. There are a number of definitions that I found and have looked at, but it is a fairly broad term to allow for a number of investment things. Probably one of the Investopedia, I think, probably has one of the better definitions, but again, it's fairly broad. And most investment professionals would use a definition like that to define the various types of investment vehicles that they could use.
So it's a term of art within the financial investment field.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that's got all the questions. Chair will entertain a motion. Motion do pass. A second. Have a second. Have a motion do pass in a second. Do I have any other questions or comments before we take a vote on this bill? Seeing none, all those in favor of the bill, if you would raise your hand. All those opposed. Bill passes. We'll go on to the Rules Committee. Senator Black, be sure you go by the Rules Committee office and fill out the paperwork. And who's going to carry the bill for you? We can't bring it forward until we get that name now. Okay, all right. That being the last bill, before we adjourn, I want to thank the committee for all the work this year. We've heard some interesting bills this year, and I appreciate all your hard work. Appreciate you being here at the meetings. With that, we're adjourned. Huh?